All right. Well, we'll go ahead and get started. So again, I'm Philip. I'm the product manager for Catalan. If you didn't know, we did release a new version of Catalan, a major version, Catalan Studio 11. We're proud of. And joining me today are my two PMs, Swan Tran and Tweet No. They have portions of the product underneath me, and they're the people I have in charge to help drive those items for like Studio Assist and the web and mobile. All right, so we're going to go through a few items here. I'll start with what I think is the most important, helping you get to KS11. So we'll go over the core updates in the new auto migration tool, and then we'll be going through all of the new features that we've added. Um, a lot of these are in beta, so they're still works in progress, but what we really want is feedback. Try it out, see how it is. I'm of the mentality it's better to release fast, maybe not perfect, and get feedback and make it perfect. And in my, as my PMs would probably tell you, uh, nothing's ever perfect in my mind. We can always improve. I'm never quite satisfied. So we'll go ahead and go through. So one of the items, well, first of all, there's a lot of core updates. If you didn't know, Catalan Studio, the way that we version it is it's like some semantic versioning. So whenever there's the 9 to 10 to 11, there's breaking changes, there's core changes, right? So the biggest one would be the change from Java 17 to Java 21, um, which, if you didn't know, for Windows and Mac, that's already bundled in. So you don't need to do anything. If you're on Linux or you're using KRE, you may need to update the OpenJDK that you're using, but it should be pulled down. It just works. We also upgraded Cucumber 3 to Cucumber 7, bumped up the Selenium and Appium Java clients. And if you're using mobile, like a local emulator, you will need to upgrade to Appium 3. If you're using a third party or like Test Cloud, you don't need to upgrade Appium. That's taken care of by the Java client. It's a hosted Appium, right? So those are the items. And the whole reason for that is just, keep everything up to date, fast, a lot of new features like in Cucumber and all of that stuff. Support the latest versions of devices, especially with the Appium piece, and reduce any security vulnerabilities and all of that stuff. Now, this isn't too new. We've done this in 8 to 9, 9 to 10. What is new is that we now have an auto migration tool to help speed this up. So this technically came out in 10.4. We added more what we call recipes to help you upgrade. So the ideal is that you can upgrade in just a few minutes your project. You download the new version of Studio, you run the auto migration, and it'll take care of it for you. The only thing it won't do is it won't download the latest Appium, right? So that you'd have to do yourself. But in terms of like changing your code, switching things over, all of that should be done for you based on these migration tools. So I'll show a little video of how this works. So first off, we're going to revert back just so you can see the difference. It will save the changes so you can revert back. Well, if you were to go download Catalan Studio 11, you're going to see errors, right? Because there may be some migration that you have to do. That's what this is expected. If you see this with if you're using Cucumber, you're going to have to upgrade or run the migration. So from there, we just do the migrate Studio 10 to 11. There's a migration guide. I do recommend reading it so you know what the actual changes are in the background. You could do it all manually, but why make it hard? But it's good to know. It's always good to know what's changing so you have an understanding. And we'll go through all of that here because there's new syntax, especially with Cucumber. So we'll start the migration. It'll run us through that project, change a bunch of files. And the real key takeaway is pause it once it happens. You can revert it if it didn't work for some reason, and it will create log files. So it should just work. But I work in QA. I know that there's always some edge case. So if there is that edge case and you get it, just grab that log file, make a support ticket, and I wouldn't spend your time trying to figure it out. You pay us, we'll fix it, right? So grab that, send it over to us, and we'll help figure out what's going on and fix it quite fast. But the whole point is that migration, instead of taking a long time. It should take 5 minutes or less. So that is always very important. And then once you migrate, you can use all the new things that we're gonna show you today. And you can also check to see what changed, and a lot of different imports and stuff has changed mainly. All right, so we'll go through the other side. If you're coming from like 9 to 11, there's a lot of changes. The 9 to 10 had a lot of changes because of Appium, so that should all be much, much easier now. Now we'll go into the actual new features. So one is Studio Assist. The Studio Assist is our AI agent within Catalyst Studio. We've added a new ability, a new tool using the MCP server to make it where we can now interact with the application or task. Before, if you had it create items, it didn't actually know what was going on in the page. It was just guessing the locators. Now, Studio Assist actually has the ability to connect to Chrome, more or less, and see what's on the page, navigate through, click buttons, capture the context, and help generate real locators. This gets us a lot closer to the requirements to, automated tasks. In fact, and for sometimes that actually does work without much funneling. We're working on making that appear like magic. So this is a very key item here. If you use Studio Assist in the past and it didn't create the right items, this should push it forward. Also, if you were using Studio Assist with the AI service, as of yesterday, we've upgraded the models in the backend. So if you're running any issues there are new models that are much better, and you should get a lot better results now. So we'll go through a little demo here. So here we're just giving it like the context, like plain English of do XYZ step basically. And then whenever it's doing this type of item here, it's calling a tool or like MCP tool. So it's actually navigating to the web page. That's what's new here. You can also do clicks, screenshots, I think, or take the source, and we can create the web test objects and all of that stuff now. So that should make it much easier to create tests. But again, like I started on this, we really want to get feedback from you guys. Make this really polished. And then so we took it, we didn't really change anything, we ran it, and now it works because it actually knows the locators. It's not just guessing. And this is just run straight up. So that's great. All right. Now the other item, this is where the configuration comes into play. We now have agent profile, so you can customize your agents depending on like the application or task would be a good example. Give it as much context as you can, and it will greatly improve the output that Studio Assist does. So if you wanted to optimize something, always use BDD, always do, whatever information that isn't in the general AI knowledge, then we can leverage it here. The secret with AI that I figured out is the more context, the more good context you give it, the way better it is. Way better. So I'll show you how that looks like right here. It's quite simple. So right here, you usually just have the generic agent, but now you can create those profiles with the different types of testing, so you'll get more specific items. So think of it like cursor rules, basically. And it's going to save it in the project settings. So if anybody pulls the project, they should have the same agents available to them. And then you can create new profiles and delete them and all of that stuff. All it is an MD file. Yeah, so that will probably be the point where we need to like play with, or where you would need to play with for all the applications, and then that will make it just super streamlined. Okay, so I'll go forward. Other items in terms of we just keep adding new tools. So it now is able to get test data, like I said, with new tools for web page interaction, navigate, get the accessibility tree, set text, click. You can do all of that stuff. And then there's a lot of items with like getting test objects, creating test objects, updating them. So it can do all of that now too. But a lot of that came out in like 10.4, 2 and 3, but just wanted to reiterate if you haven't used this in a while. There's a lot of changes now and should be getting much, much better. Other items here would be the AI failure reason analysis is now available in KRE. So if you haven't used that before, it came out in 10.4.3. But when it fails, instead of just giving you the stack trace, it'll send that stack trace to your configured AI, give you some recommendations on how to resolve the issue and what the issue is. You can also add images to Studio Assist chat. This is for both Ask and Agent mode. So in fact, if you have like a good use case here would be if you only have the wireframes for your test, like the application or test doesn't exist, it's just wireframes or Figma or something, you can just take the screenshot, upload, and you can start creating the scaffolding for you. And then once the application is created, we can use the other items to navigate through the web page and update the scripts. Another one which didn't show, well, it was shown, but I didn't mention it, was you can now review file changes, right? So whenever it's doing items to it, you can approve or deny the changes that it's doing to those files. If it's creating objects, you can approve or deny that. The agent profile, which we just covered, and the new tools to help streamline the requirement to automated script view. That was the first thing we covered here. All right, so that's all the Studio Assist items. We're going to move to the web testing, and we'll do all the questions at the end. I didn't say that earlier, but we'll do the questions at the end if you have any questions or anything like that. So other items. So we now have a new web recording agent, and it's going to make a lot more sense when I show it to you. And a new recorder UI for web. And we also have a new recorder UI for mobile. So this is just to help make it convert natural language. And it's a bit different than what Studio Assist is doing. In fact, it's much better just to show. Let's see. So you need to have it configured. You can actually, in fact, let me highlight this. If there's any issues, you can go back to the old recorder. For both, there's a new web and mobile recorder. They're on by default, but if you need to, you can turn them off and go back to the old recorder. You don't need to go back to KS10, right? So that's just one item there if there's some missing use case or anything. So there's this. So here you can just give plain text instructions and it'll create a plane and run with it. The difference between this and Studio Assist, eventually it's probably going to merge, but the other difference is if you're using this and it gets stuck, you can just do a manual recording. Like this is more human in the loop than the Studio Assist one. So we'll keep going because this is the manual recorder, but it's also the agent. So it'll go through, create a task plan, navigate through the page. If it runs into issues, you can help prompt it some more to run through it, or you can just do the testing yourself at that point. Like if it does like 90% and it gets stuck, just click the object. So that's what it does, creates the items. Yeah. So that's a big part. We will be upgrading the model soon. I don't remember when. It should be this month, I believe. Tweak can answer that, but we will be upgrading the model soon for that item too. So it'll get even better, even without upgrading Catalan Studio. We can do that on ourselves if you're using the Catalan AI service. So you'll see improvements over this month with that. Other items, we now have AI self-healing. So we have always had self-healing, but now it's actually using the AI to find the right locators, using the accessibility tree, using the document object model to figure out what the right locator should be. And this does require Studio Assist to be configured. So all of these require Studio Assist to be configured. As long as that's configured, we can start leveraging it pretty much everywhere. So let me show you what that looks like. So right here is where you enable the AI self-healing. And there's different items that you can send. Depending on the application or test, you may need to tweak it a little bit. Like I've had really good with the accessibility tree, which is the second option. It's a little bit covered. But for some of the applications, sending the page source is better, the full page source. Like it kind of depends on the application or task. If they're WCAG compliant, the accessibility tree is pretty awesome. If it's not, it might be useless. and you want to use the other ones. So we'll go through, and once you run through this, execute. I think we sped this up a little bit. It'll show up. So that's if you want to see where it's using the AI, it's right here. So it's using the self-healing, depending on what model you have, or if it's using the AI service, what model we have, and that'll help resolve the issue. But from there, it does the same thing as the old one did, right? The old self-healing where it creates a report and sets it up. So all that's the same. It's just that these proposed locators are quite a bit better when you're using an LLM. Right? And then you just approve or deny it. All right. Then we also have, this is an MVP. It's a Canal Studio Tracer, so it's just like a flight recorder, very similar to the Playwright one, to get different items when you're troubleshooting. So we'll show you how to set that up right here in the video. So you do need to enable it, and you can say when you want it to be on. It does have a performance penalty when it's on. So if you just want it on failures, you can do it that way. If you want it all the time just to try it out, go for it. But there is a known performance penalty. That's one of the big reasons why it's still MVP. I want to improve that performance before making it go GA. So you'll execute the test case, open the folder, and then you can drag. Oops, my bad. Clicked the wrong button there. You'll need to navigate to that web page. So right here. So you'll update that. You'll upload the K-trace to that page, and then you can view the item. So it'll show all of the different items here, and the logs, locators, network. It should show all of those items for you, so you can get deeper details out of it, not just a video. Right. Then we'll go to the mobile testing. So as I've alluded to earlier, there is a new mobile test recorder, and the UX is vastly improved. Not only is it more attractive, but it is vastly improved UX. And there's two different modes to it. One is the interactive mode. That is the only part that's still in beta. The new recorder's good, GA, it's great. But I'll show you what the difference is. So it should be far easier to use. So this is where you would enable the interactive mode. It's going to remove some items on the bottom, but you just go through your application like it was a normal application, basically. So when you swipe, you just drag and drop, you just swipe, you just click. It's not that two-step mobile recorder of the past, right? Set the text, etc. The only reason it's still in beta is because there's a few UX issues I want to iron out before we make it GA. Specifically with the edit text. It's not super intuitive that you're able to click or you're able to type. So we want to make that a bit easier to leverage, just a little bit of polish. But overall, it works quite good, and really want to hear some feedback on how you guys are leveraging it. And if you guys haven't started mobile testing yet and you want like a trial for Test Cloud, let me know. I can probably provision some Test Cloud licenses for you guys to try out. Right, and one thing to note soon. So we did create the agent mode for web. Just to note, that is coming for mobile as well. So we don't have an agent mode yet, but we will be having an agent mode for mobile this year, probably a lot sooner than later, using the same feedback we get from the web one. So both of those will have it. Right. Let's go to the API testing. This is probably second to last slide. So when we now have AI-powered API test generation, it generates like positive, negative, edge, and security tests for you. The whole point, though, or the key thing it needs is an open API spec. So it's creating it all based on the open API spec. And then it uses AI to give you some insights or a lot of insights into it. I'll show you what this is very different than the previous API test. It's a totally different way of going about it. It also leverages Studio Assist. That's a big thing. Previously, you would have to send your data to us. this is whatever you configure into DSS. So you can use the Catalan AI service, or you can use whatever LLM you want. It doesn't have any intermediate processing on our servers, because that was a big blocker for a lot of our enterprise users. So how this works is that you will need to go to your Andre repository and do an import of the OpenAPI spec. You do not click the auto generate tests from endpoints. You don't have to click this. That's the old way. So all you would do there is just get into it, grab that OpenAPI spec, the beloved pet store one, and then what happens here is there's a new folder type. This happened in 10.4. We have a new, it's like an API collection folder, which allows you to set authorization as a bulk attribute and to generate tests. This generate test will only show up if you import an OpenAPI spec. You always see the authorization though. So if you do use authorization, you can configure it here and it will still help generate those tests for you. If you need to, or you just skip that and just go here. So with this, there's a couple items here. So one of them is, depending on the spec, like if you're using Pet Store, you'll need to set the server URL because it doesn't know the actual server to test against. And then from there, you can select what type of tests you want. Positive, negative, security, API, or which endpoints. The item here is if you don't select any API paths, it will select them all for you. And this is, again, another reason why this is in beta. I just need to clean up some of that UX here to make that a little bit more intuitive. But if you just don't select, it selects it all for you. And then from there, what test types, what HTTP methods, you just generate the test. Now, it doesn't create scripts. This is a little bit different of a way of going about it. The scripts are not seen by you. It's all magic. What is seen is a lot of the reports, and it's fine because in that report, it'll tell you how to run it through curl. So if you wanted to recreate it, send it to the dev, everybody uses curl. Every AI uses curl, it seems. So you can still send them the report, and they don't need to open up Studio to go recreate it. They don't need to go look at a script to recreate it. They'll have the curl to recreate it. This will run. It will take like a minute or less. We'll skip ahead to see the report here. So here's the detailed report. It'll show you all the tests that got executed, failed. If there's the schema compliance analysis, this is kind of big picture stuff of what you can do to make it better and what the overall picture is. There's two things to note with OpenAPI spec testing. It could be the application test or it could be the spec, right? If the spec is poor, maybe the application test is doing everything right. And you just need to make the spec more detailed. And that's what a lot of those top items are helping figure out. Then you're going to get more of an overview of the AI detected issues. And then if you keep scrolling down, you'll get into the meaty items. So this is where the meat comes in. And this is where I was talking about where you'll have the curl commands. So if you wanted to recreate it or anything, but this is creating some of the fake data for you, and it's kind of like fuzz testing on steroids, using AI on the background too to help get all that information in a condensed form. So this should be very helpful. It's a very different approach. So as usual, I want to hear feedback, see if it's useful for, actual users. Make sure that you guys are getting what you need here, because we want to put more effort into this and make it real polished before it gets out of beta. Yeah, that's the last piece. And then this part doesn't do it anymore. We no longer create the test cases. It's just all kind of magic in the background. The key item artifact is the report itself. And the reason for that is because people were just like looking at tests, and it's all about the outcome. It's not, don't worry about the script. It's not going to be saved in the Git repo or anything. It's like a cache, basically. Just wipe it out. Cool. But that is the last new item in KS11. The only other item was the collection folder that came out in 10.4 to make it easier to set authorization for everybody, right? So if you is going through every API, you can now just set it up at the collection level and the other endpoints underneath will just inherit from the collection. All right, so that's everything. We speed run through this webinar, it seems. So we'll open up to questions. Let me know what you guys think of the new items in KS11.